Welcome back to Capricorn TV live stream today. I'm going to be joined by my new co-hosts, Hilary Raimo. A little bit about Hilary before I introduced her. First got connected, first got aware of Hilary Raimo's radio show to our mutual friend Robert Boval. And as some of the listeners will know, that Hilary is already assimilated into the Capricorn Radio Network. So delighted to have Hilary aboard. But today we're going to join up for a couple of shows this week. Today is going to be a topic matter on twin flames and soulmates. And we're also going to do a show later on in the week with returning guest Barbara Han-Clow, which we've both interviewed separately. And I'll be looking forward to doing the joint show. I guess today's show is more of an expose and a redefinition of what twin flames and twin souls are. This is going to be great for me to do this because I haven't been able to get into some subject matter that I would normally do, and I used to do this on previous episodes with the previous co-host, so this is great to return to this today. So without further ado, let's bring on my lovely co-host from New York. Hi Hilary, you're very welcome back to the show.
Hi James, hi everybody. It's so great to be here. I'm excited.
Wow, me too. Hilary, here we are. We're going to join forces, and I like what we're going to do. We're going to do some shows as subject matter. We're going to do some shows as guests. Of course, you have your own shows too. You are a veteran of radio. Let's build a little bit for the audience. Tell us a little bit about you, why you do radio, Hilary, why you do the shows.
Why do I do radio? Well, that's a great question. I started doing radio about a decade ago when I was on my spiritual path and, going along just great. And my teacher at the time said, go read all of David Icke's books.
Wow.
I said, what? And because it had come from her, I did, and I got through them. And by the time I was done with all of that information, I was so motivated, I guess, to do something that I was already writing books and doing a few other things and working as a Reiki healer and doing a lot of shamanic study at the time in my life. And so basically what happened was I formulated a platform so that I could help in some way to distribute information that would help others who were finding themselves to the same kind of information. The conspiracy world is a very interesting maze of information, and what I wanted to do was help others, give them a way to navigate through the information. And I also wanted to leave it where people, I wanted to leave each of my shows in a happy place at the end. I didn't want people to feel like they're slimed. Oftentimes in those worlds, we get a lot of well-intended people who go out and do these kinds of things, but they don't necessarily wrap it up. It leaves people hanging. So I had a very clear intent when I started radio. I got on. My show was #1 on Achieve Radio for almost 9.5 of the 10 years. And I had a great time. It was fun. I ended up liking it, so that's how it started.
Well, I look forward to the next 10 years at Capricorn Radio. I'm always interested in Hilary, and I'm always interested in why people does radio, because I just think there's a variety of people out there, and I think a lot of the time their heart and their insight is all in the right place, but there's all sorts of different star signs, there's different personalities, there's different ways of going about it, and I'm always intrigued in the person behind the radio, because it's a service and a duty, I think, that people in alternative radio or alternative subjects, or whether that's spirituality, consciousness, UFOs, ancient history, civilizations, origins, whatever this genre is, and I know you've covered all of that, Hilary, and that's admirable to be doing that for 10 years. I mean, you probably would have pioneered a lot of this stuff. Well, what I think is admirable is that, it's a sense of duty, and I don't see a lot of other hosts out there seeing it as a sense of duty, because it's providing content that's of worthy to people. That's the way I see it anyway.
I agree. And we're responsible for the content that we put out no matter what we do. So if we're radio hosts or if we're something else, we have to be accountable for what we're doing. And I think we have a responsibility, and not everybody's called to do it. Radio is an interesting media. TV is an interesting media. I mean, we all have our choice of how we present what we know or information. I had a lot of great guests, and what I ended up doing was having a great, fantastic conversation once a week with pretty much anybody I wanted. So if I saw somebody's material out there floating around, or I heard them on another venue, I would love to ask this person questions. And it became almost like another 10 years of personal spiritual experiences, because, as you know, it's not very common that people get to go out and have conversations with some of these wonderful researchers and authors and healers and people who are doing great things in the world. I was very, very lucky and happy and content with that, and so it fit me and my personality really well. So I'm excited, and I'm excited here to be at Capricorn and with you, James, and working on all of these new ways of being in the world. And you are the one that got me back on the air, because I stopped doing my run January of this year. And I completed it, and I completed it well and wrapped it up. And then I traveled for a bit and painted and was in my niche. And you said, Hillary, let's do a show. And I said, no, I don't want to go back on the air. I've completed my time. And after several wonderful, inspiring conversations, here I am.
Yeah, and here we are. We're going to talk about subject matter today. Great that I get to do this, because I haven't done this in a while. And twin flames and soulmates, I think, is an important concept. I'll be honest with you, I'm a spiritual guy. However, I started doing radio for mostly history and origins, and like this quest that I'm on, and what's turned out from my personal hobby or personal life is now my career, and the radio and TV is just one extension of that as an author. But I wanted to provide content that was diverse, and I wanted to provide content that was what everybody was looking. I didn't want it to be my radio show about my subjects. Yes, I have a core body of that in the history and the origins, but I find that the ancients had a philosophy, and they had, this wonderful harmony with nature and spiritual concepts, and mixed with their origins. The whole thing is just one super philosophy to me now. I didn't get that at the start, and that's how I've kind of grown on the radio. So it's been a journey for me too, and that's why I love to do shows on spirituality, consciousness, some on philosophy, because it's an extension of the research that's going on out there of the ancients and where we're at today. I guess maybe tell me your definition of a twin flame or a soulmate, first of all, and I'll give you my Irish version there if you
Well, the twin flame subject is a personal one as well as a professional one. I work as an intuitive consultant, and so I work with people on the phone mostly, sometimes doing in-person sessions wherever we end up. And myself, I have my own experience with the twin flame energy, and I also have years of working with others who have come to me to discuss the phenomena and the search. And a twin flame, for what I would say a twin flame is now, is somebody who complements your energy so well that when you are in the same space as that person, there is a kind of harmonic resonance that happens that elevates the consciousness of both people. The twin flame phenomenon in the New Age industry as it exists now makes it seem, and I'm guilty of writing about this myself too, because I have processed my feelings through the twin flame phenomena through poetry on my blog, The Yin Factor, story form type things, and it's traditionally seen in the context of being, we have one person out there, one person out there who matches us so identically that we're considered like a twin. And the flame that is created between these two people is what the Gnostics, call that inner knowing kind of flame. It becomes like a bonfire, if you will. So we have this theory that twin flames come together. It's this one person out there someplace that is the only one that can contribute to this phenomena. And, when it's happening to people, it does feel like this is in fact true. I can vouch for that myself. However, in our pre-show discussions, you had said something very interesting to me that kind of clicked all of this with me as we were preparing for the show. You know, if you only have one person out there, and let's say you find that person and the relationship dissolves over a period of time, what do you do with the rest of your life? Do you just wander around aimlessly because that one twin flame person who is the only one, the one, is gone now? No. So I'd like to talk about the concept as I'd like to redefine it. I think the whole New Age industry has it wrong. I think it can trap people. It can keep people very stuck in the endless search. I think it will devalue certain relationships that you get into, because if you make up your mind saying, oh, well, you're not my twin flame, you're not the one, I'm going to move on, you may have had an opportunity there to create that. And I call it a level of consciousness. It's quantum consciousness. I believe that we as human beings are evolving towards quantum consciousness. And as we practice this level of high resonancy, high relating, getting into this space with another person that allows the mind to be illuminated and turned on, we practice this inevitable evolution of humanity that we're headed to. So I think we're kind of in that place. So that the concept of a twin flame really traditionally is seen as this. I'd like to see it transformed into a different definition personally. But I guess, you know, that's where I would start. Yeah.
Wow. For me, I don't know. I look at it as the Mr. Scientist sometimes. I think that, you know, when people meet, I think they have a set of intentions and a set of energy. I think that and it's not just when we shared some hobbies together and we kind of like doing the same things, and it's like, yeah, there's all that too, but it's like very specific, intricate things, synchronicities, if you will, but just all of that plus the energy feels right to an extremely high level. And that's what I would maybe classify it. And I think there's a list of conditions there that are all so random and specific that all kind of tune in. And I just don't think I think there's maybe a handful of possible twin flames or flames that you can twin with. It would probably be a better way to explain it. And that's kind of like an Irish thing. I mean, it's different for me because I know what you're talking about, and there's a whole New Age thing, that twin flames and incarnation, and it's an incarnation or reincarnation that you have met this person before, lifetimes ago or not. And I've had that feeling, and not necessarily whether I've been with somebody or not. And we don't actually differentiate in Ireland between a soul friend and a soul mate. It's the same thing. In Irish we call them, it's Anamcara. Anam is the Irish for soul, and Cara is the Irish for friend. There is no other term for soul mate, as in a physical mate that you will physically mate with as well. It's all the same thing, and it's the soul friendship is there first as the core body. If it becomes something else, then it becomes something else. So it's soul friends and soul mates is all the one type of philosophy, and it's. You ask Celtic people this, it seems to resonate with them. You say this to other people around the world, it's like an elusive concept. I mean, it's a divinity thing. We look at the whole earth as divinity. Ireland's a beautiful country, the landscape, you've seen it, you know that. It's like the rivers, the hills, the sea, the sky, all the animals, the forests, everything here is just, it's pretty much been unscathed, untapped since, time immemorial. Apart from a couple of major cities on the east coast, the rest of Ireland is pretty rural and still as it looked, 5, 6, 7,000 years ago. And the ancients, they talk about these Gaelic, these soul friends, that you'll know them when you meet them because they just stand out a mile. And it's like you rediscover the person from this spiritual legacy that each other has. And it's an incredibly evolved concept. And a lot of Irish authors write about it to teach the rest of the world about this. And that's my idea of a soul friend or soulmate. It's based on a friendship first that may evolve, and I think you need to have that in any relationship. There's a friendship there. However, I mean, I like you say, and like I said before the show and pre-production, that I don't think you can, just write your rest of your life off because you think you found your soulmate and your soulmate's not there anymore. I think there's a searching that needs to happen, and I think there's a set of discoveries that you need to make before you know or recognize your soul friend. You can't just have this taught to you in a day and grow up as a child going, okay, I have a list of conditions for my soulmate now, and it's like, you know, it doesn't work like that. You need to learn and grow and psychologically develop and realize all this. Hopefully you do that very quickly and you don't have to waste your whole life doing that. But then that comes down to awareness, and I'll throw that back to you, Hilary.
Yeah, I think it is about awareness. It's about, I mean, think about if past lives are real and we're going through this one, every single person that we have a heart soul connection to, whether we are friends or, you know, lovers or partners, we have a bond. And so in our next life, I mean, we may recognize that in another incarnation, and we may not necessarily know exactly what it is right away, but it's a familiarity that happens when you are in that person's space again, that if you have learned to recognize that and to appreciate that and to honor that, you and both parties agree that that feeling is there. That's the other thing too, is that sometimes it may be one person recognizes it, but the other person doesn't. And we need to be really careful about how we proceed with that, because we can't just rush in and say, hey, wait a minute, you're this. Because there's a level of manipulation that can happen there, especially because some people's integrity is just not where it needs to be. And so we need to learn as individuals how to discern between this recognition, the soul recognition, the feelings that come with it. I mean, I have children, so my bond with my children is very, very strong. And so in my next life, if this is indeed how it works, then when I recognize my son in the next life, he may not be my son, but I may have this kind of soul recognition. And it may be unfamiliar to me at that point in time, but the feelings associated with it are very strong. And we need to be able to allow the procession of the revealing to take place so that we can figure out what and where these feelings are coming from without jumping to conclusions or playing the doubt game or the fear or running away and saying, oh, I can't handle this. And that's what a lot of people do, honestly. Yeah. Now, 2015, everything is digital and virtual. My children are growing up in a world where relationships have to do, I met her on Instagram. I did this, I did that. You know, I mean, I'm an adult in my 40s, and I look at the world now. I'm kind of the last of the generation where we would mail letters off to people and wait 2 weeks for a reply. And we had telephones stuck in the walls with big cords, and we couldn't go anywhere. And our children, our generations underneath us, are learning a completely different way of connecting to other human beings that starts in a virtual world, most likely. So are we teaching our younger generations how to connect heart to heart in the real, tangible, knock on wood world? Or are we letting them get lost in fantasy? And fantasy is an interesting thing, because fantasy does not bring the reality of some of these deeper relations that we have the possibility of cultivating and bringing forward. So the twin flame phenomena is, it is what it is, but we have to be very careful not to get caught in this endless psychological search looking for this one ideal that we have. And in each moment that we have a relationship with somebody, it's about being mindful, being present, allowing whatever feelings of familiarity surface on both sides to be expressed. I mean, I've had these feelings arise with people that I'm not involved with romantically. And I was so thankful that at certain times, these people were open to discussing, just having a conversation about what this was. And in that, there was some revealing. And I think that's really what is key here. It's like, if you feel like you have a soul connection to somebody, sit down and tell the person. I mean, be very honest. We are becoming a telepathic type species. I really believe that in the future, centuries down the road, we will have developed not only technology that will help us along those lines, but our consciousness will have evolved to the degree where we can do that. So what does that mean? It means you cannot say one thing and feel another. And I'm an empath, and I was born this way. I'm an empath. And for me, feeling people's emotions comes completely natural, but it comes in like tsunami waves sometimes. And I can always tell when somebody is not telling me their truth. They're giving me something on the surface that's not what's brewing inside. So when people come together and they have these relationships and they have these feelings, it's okay. And we need permission to be okay with it, I think, because so many times we're meeting others in kind of a defense mode, or we have our boundaries are up and we don't want anybody to figure us out or get inside of us. And sometimes that's appropriate, but other times, if there's something going on, I mean, how do you know you're not missing some great key or some great moment or piece of life that person might hold for you, based on this kind of, I don't know, mental attitude where you have to keep yourself separated from everybody and protect yourself all the time. And I hear that a lot. You know, I'm psychic and I can't be around a lot of people. Well, you have to learn how to do that, because otherwise you're doing yourself a disservice and you're missing out on these beautiful opportunities to move through life in your complete being instead of just what you think your five senses tell you.
Wow. I guess I'm on the opposite end of the scale. I can't hold myself. I just tell everybody how I feel and what I think, and it's like, that's me, and it's like my heart is on my sleeve. So I don't know, it's like, it's an alien concept, but I know what you're talking about. There are people out there that have this firewall up, and even if they could deal with their own emotions or their own mentalism, and not in a negative way. I mean, sometimes people just get overwhelmed with the intensity of something, whether that's negative or good or whatever, and they're not very extroverted or you know, I understand that, I get that. There are people out there, it's like it takes all sorts to make a world, so it might not be a negative thing, but yeah, I mean, being able to express yourself at the right moment, at the right time, because you never know what's going to come back as a result. Somebody else might express back, and you never know. That person might just share their philosophy, and it might be the very exact same as yours. And I think that's the important thing. I think it comes back to philosophy and not a practical thing. Yes, there is some sort of a practical thing involved in meeting a soulmate or a soul flame. I think there is, but I think there is a philosophy behind it, and we need to go back to the philosophy of it and get away from, okay, well, if I don't meet my soul flame this year, it's like I'm giving up. It's like, because people are like that. I know, and people want to see the goods. Like, that's what the human race are like. Show me the goods, I want to see it. Like, you know, and it doesn't work like that. You got to take life as it is delivered to you, and if you don't, you're just not working with what you got. And I think, and another important point that you made about was the senses. This is a spirituality of the senses. If you weigh up all the senses, like you just explained, and understand that you're setting in tones and intonations out there to the universe as a result, and you express yourself in that way, well, then you are going to meet your soul flame or your soulmate. You know, it's bound to happen at some point. It's just whether you're going to be free at the time or not preoccupied with some other situation or person. You know, are you going to live in solitude till you find that person? Because a lot of people don't want to wait for the payloads. You know, a lot of people want to sit there and they're not happy being in solitude. So there's a whole lot of other practical reasons too, Henry. It's just a matter of people have faith to wait the distance, you know, and that's another important thing.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's just, I think the soulmate energy exists, and when we're in a relationship with somebody, it helps to practice that. And if you have moments of higher consciousness with your partner, it takes work. I mean, I think there's a misconception that when you meet your soulmate, you won't have to work at a relationship anymore, that you won't ever feel bad, that you will always have these grand, spontaneous, super moments that will take you to the stars and back. It also comes down to sexual energy, because when we engage sexually with our partners or with a partner, we're entering into a completely different realm where we are asked to, we are merging our energy fields in this way, and we don't do that with everybody. So I think the soulmate energy has the sexual element to it as well, mostly. But the soulmate energy, I really believe that when you're in a partnership with somebody and you practice this type of communing, this type of mutual respect, the reciprocal give and take, the spontaneous combustion stuff, but you also have to go grocery shopping, pay the bills, pay the mortgage, there's practical elements to these relationships as well. And in the new age world, it seems to be sometimes an excuse not to be in a relationship with somebody. I've noticed that too. It's like, well, I believe we're all one, and I don't want to be with just one person. My love is so all over the place. I mean, it's kind of like the old line back in the 80s, when you had these other dynamics going on or earlier on that tell you, well, it's kind of like an excuse. Either the commitment level to nurturing the soulmate flame is something that takes a lot of work. It's not something that, you might have this instant connection, you might get along great, 3 months go by, and all of a sudden, you're not quite enamored anymore with this person, or some things are coming up, or you have to be willing to sit down and do the work. And if you're not willing to sit down and do the work, then you're just not willing to do the work in a relationship. I don't think it's not so much that this person isn't your soulmate or isn't your twin flame. It's just that life itself gives us a set of circumstances, and how we navigate those circumstances and how we thrive within those circumstances depends on the purity of that emotional connection that you have with another person.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about my parents. I watched them. I just see two soulmates there, and I feel very blessed that my parents are still together, and I grew up in a family that was very nurturing. However, I know they didn't have it easy, Hilary. They battled to be with each other. They went against sectarian communities. They went against both from different religions. I mean, they were made for each other. They were born to be with each other. And they're with each other 40 plus years now, and my father would lie down and die for her. He literally would. He would do it for his family too. He's an incredible, awesome guy, a very intelligent guy, very skill set second to none. But that's the type of guy he is, and that's all he cares about is her and his immediate family, and providing and doing that in the most intelligent, spiritual, emotional way, and I'm just blessed to have him as a father. So, and she's just the same. I mean, they don't make a decision together, they don't make a decision without being together, and they don't make it, whether that's something small or it's like they almost have this. They live as one, like, type of thing, and it's beautiful to watch it. And I grew up watching it, and I kind of seen that as the norm, but I know that's not the world. I know that isn't the world, and I just think it's a beautiful thing, and I feel blessed to have seen that on many different specific occasions. And I won't go into specifics, but I just know that energy is there, and it's possible. But then again, I mean, they grew up relatively close to each other. That's not always the case. I mean, you don't expect to grow up in the same neighborhood as your twin flame. It's not going to be that. If twin flames are incarnating here and you haven't seen somebody in a few lifetimes, don't expect them to be incarnating to the same neighborhood as you. It doesn't necessarily work like that. I mean, they were like my mum and dad. They were 20 miles from each other. So, I mean, that's nothing really. It's nothing, So, distance is a thing, and then people, humans are creatures of convenience. They are creatures of routine as well, and they don't want to break from the norm, or they don't want to go search. And there is a search involved. There literally is. It's not a big search, it's a commitment to search, or it's a commitment. That's the way I see it. Maybe you don't agree with that, but I think there's a commitment to search, and there's a commitment for either at least a period of solitude while you search.
I agree with that. I mean, there is a search, but people can become addicted to the search, and they become trapped in the search. And, your parents are a wonderful example of this phenomena, because in their next lives, they may not live 20 miles from each other, and they may feel that pull towards each other. And actually, this is an interesting thing, is that people who have been together, like your parents, for a long time, they die within the same time frames. My grandparents were much like your parents. They were together for over 50 years. And when my grandfather died, he was sick. We all knew he was passing. She died within 2 months, and she wasn't sick, and she had nothing. So we all say, oh, he came and got her. Because that's pretty much what it was. He came and got her, or something happened. I've heard a lot of that. That people who are together for long periods of time will cross over together within a few months of each other, because their souls are literally so connected. So it's like, do you develop this soulmate connection by being in that long-term physical presence? Is that what really determines being a soulmate? Because if we're dealing with past lives, then at some point we were physically close to this person for a very long period of time, perhaps. So it's like trying to study a science that overlays lifetimes, and it's hard because we don't really have the skills or the tools to do that necessarily. We can only speculate and make our intuitive hunches, come into play. But I don't know if the New Age industry has done service to others in the way that it's been presented, because it kind of keeps this lockdown on this ideal concept that may not be what we think it is. So I always encourage people to, act like everybody that you're in relationship with is your soulmate. Meet them on that plane, because what happens when you commune with somebody on that plane of, okay, you're my soulmate, you're here, you've showed up, you've stayed, we're doing the work, then you have a doorway or an opening into the human system that you do not normally access. And it can allow a cultivation of different kinds of energy through both of you, psychic experiences, shared dreaming experiences. If you take your soulmate or twin flame to, the ruins in Ireland, and you sit there and meditate together, or you go to the cliffs and you meditate, or here in New York, you go down to the 9/11 memorial together, or you go to the river and stream over here and you meditate together. Wherever you're doing your work, it's amplified. You have an amplification that happens. I'm not convinced that it has to be that one person, because I've had experiences personally myself where you can attain that level of consciousness with other people you're not necessarily in that relationship with. So I think it may be enhanced because of the physical closeness that exists between two people when they're in partnership. And if you cultivate that in a certain way, you have an incredible opportunity to experience things you would not normally experience without that.
I think you're right, and I think, like you say, it's the ideology. It's almost like there's a pandemic out there because people are so focused on, what ideology does, it doesn't do a lot. It just fixates itself on its own set of beliefs, and there's no practical benefit from it. And I think there's a lot of ideologies out there, and we just need to get away from some of them. I think, again, philosophy doesn't, come back to philosophy. Philosophy has this kind of ever-evolving element to it. So understand the philosophy of it without trying to turn it into an ideology or a set of rules or beliefs. And it's where you hit that dogma. And I think there's a pandemic out there, and I think there's a lot of souls at the moment feeling despair, not just for financial or economic reasons or whatever, but I think there's a pandemic out there in a spiritual sense too. But personally for me, I no problem believing fate and destiny, and I think that's something that people don't like to get into, because it inevitably will come back down to that. Are you meant to meet your soulmate then? Maybe you don't meet them this time. Maybe you have to wait another journey. Who knows? I mean, but what's wrong with a bit of fate and destiny? I like a bit of magic. If I didn't have a world without a bit of magic, I don't want to be here. Don't take my magic away. It's like, get into a little. I mean, Darwinian, I'm not interested. I don't want to know that we're all like little biological robots. I'm sorry, I never bought into it. I never will buy into it. I've always been on a little soul's journey, and I've known that my entire life. So you can give me Darwinian all you want, and it's just another religion anyway. But this little bit of magic that we have in fate and destiny, I think I've seen too many things to me happen to me on my own personal journey that I'm like, this has all been laid out for me, and I know in a physics sense that the past, the present, and the future all exist simultaneously. That's been proven. So it's like, well, am I just kind of reliving something here? I don't even know. I don't even try to process it anymore. I just enjoy the journey, and I always think that whether you meet your soul flame or twin flame or not, I think everybody's got their own journey on this path, and as you deviate from your path, which people do, I think you have a set of nodal points that you should check in. Like maybe you either have a kid, that would be maybe a nodal point, or maybe you don't have a kid, or maybe you do. Maybe you spiritually evolve. You hit a set of emotions to a certain way, or an event or something like that. I think there's a certain nodal points that you're supposed to hit on your soul's journey, achievements, if you will. And I think the more you deter from your path and don't follow it, the worse the event is that will drag you back to that path. And that's where people can either be reckless or live the perfect life, and it's like, it's a meandering path. It's not necessarily a linear straight line. That's the way I've seen it. I've seen events prove themselves to me where, I mean, bizarre specific things, and that's the synchronicity again. I see them as just beautiful little checkpoints to say, you're on your soul's journey and you're heading the right way. So I have no problem believing in fate and destiny, and I see the whole thing as one big soup of knowledge, Hilary.
I know, and that's why I was excited to talk about this today, because it's a conversation that needs to happen. We're talking about it, and I hope what viewers are going to get from this conversation, this broadcast, is at least, if anything, a spark to have the conversation with the ones in your life now that you feel keep coming back into it for some reason. Synchronicity, I follow synchronicity. It's just the way I live now, and there is, for me, no way to deny the power of what synchronicity can lead to. I mean, there's power, there's love, there's so much there, and when you really just have given up the doubt and the skepticism, and you are in your true self, and you know yourself so well, your synchronicities are going to be different perhaps than my synchronicities. And when we come together and say, oh wow, it's the coming together that gives the confirmation that the synchronicities are real. And if we have problems coming together, we will lack those kind of aha moments, those inspirational epiphanies that happen when you come into relationship with others and you allow that to really reveal itself. I think all too common, there's this kind of doubt, this collective doubt that the intuitive world is real. A lot of women still have that, men still have it too. You James, are an example of a man who's gotten over that, and I don't think you ever had that. I mean, well, I don't see that.
I will say, in fairness, I mean, in my younger years, I mean, I was a little bit naive. I mean, most guys, and I don't mean to put guys down either, I'm a guy myself, obviously, but I think guys struggle with the conditional love aspect. I do. I did myself. It's like, more so than women. Women can give unconditional love more so than men. It's just something that's our makeup. Women are more right-brained, men are more left-brained. It's not across the board. It doesn't mean all men struggle with conditional love or unconditional love. And it's like, I just think you need to hit that zone of unconditional love. Until you learn how to do that, I think men just mature that way a little bit slower. That's the nature of the duality of male versus female and the whole thing. And I think once you've hit that zone of unconditional love, you're going to go places. You're going to go seriously good places. And it's a hard thing to do things for others without need or any conditions of a repercussion or anything. Just do something for the good of it. I love doing random acts of kindness. I do it for a giggle, and I do it for fun, just to see, and that's not even in a twin flame thing. I just do that as I just do these unconditional little acts of kindness, and I just like to see it, because they go, oh, people get shocked. It's like, this shouldn't be. You're supposed to do something good and expect something in return. It's like, no, I don't care, whatever, But it's just and I like to see it play out, and it's like, I muse at it, I should say. I muse at it, but it's something that I like, and I like to be, and yeah, it's a difficult thing. It doesn't mean you don't, you switch your head on one day and you have this unconditional love and it's all hippy-dippy ever after. It's something you need to follow, and don't fall prey to going back to a conditional love state, because you, like you say, just because you have met a twin flame or a twin soul, doesn't mean you don't have to stop working on it. It doesn't mean it's game up now. Just put your feet back and watch the telly for the rest of your life. It's like,
I think we've also seen very clearly the construct of marriage as it is currently on the planet, or the construct of what relationships we're taught relationships are, is outdated. And here's why. Because I've seen so many people who have had opportunities, and I've done this myself in my earlier years before it clicked for me, where you are in a relationship with somebody, and somebody of the opposite sex comes into your life, and it's immediate guard up, because you don't want your partner to get upset or jealous, or there may already be that construct in the relationship. So you put the wall down, you don't allow yourself to connect. How do you know that's not your child from a past life? How do you know that's not mom who's passed on? How do you really know until you allow yourself? We really have to get past these ingrained, I don't know, boundaries, I guess you could call them, where people just cannot handle, that kind of influx into the relationship. They're threatened by it. They feel insecure for whatever reason. So it's really also becomes a topic of healing that, whatever you want to call that. It's like a cesspool for some relationships. It's like, you can't, I get talked to about that all the time. You can't just love everybody, Hillary. And I go, why not? Why can't we just love everybody? Because if you're coming into my space right now today, if somebody calls me up or stops over at my home, I stop. And I pay attention, because this person speaking of fate and destiny, how do you know that the fate and destiny that's arrived on your doorstep literally isn't some powerful, profound, synchronistic message that you need to have? So if you're following synchronicity and you're living your life accordingly, and then when relationships come into it, you need to understand how to balance that, how to keep it healthy, how to allow both people in the relationship to explore these kinds of synchronicities. Because you know what? We have all maybe perhaps bumped into each other in a past life. I don't believe anybody really comes into my life without having some kind of, previous connection, because it's familiar. There's something familiar in the energy. So yeah, I think that it's also a product. Our current day structure of relationships is a product of our conditioning, whether it's through the church, through religion, through culture. Here in the United States, it's a little bit different. I don't know about Ireland, but I've seen it all over the world in different places I've traveled. People will kind of shut down. No. This is my partner. Don't talk to me. Why? Why don't talk to you? Why is it an automatic wall? Right. So I think that we really have to recondition ourselves to understand that relationships are for a reason, connections are for a reason, and if your partner has something come into their lives, or you have something coming into your lives, you need to honor and respect and let that person figure out what that is. What do you think?
Totally.
What do you think?
I'm with you. I'm going to wrap things up too, because we're at the top of the hour. I just think, in a practical sense, everything has been idolized, and to sum up, I mean, I just think it's a beautiful thing to explore, and it's about looking for the energy in others. Once you start to do that, you might start seeing results. That's all I can say. I know I did, and I seen stuff, and it's like I have a role where I have my academic left brain thing going on, and it's like I follow my career and everything I do, and then I have this right brain way of approaching life, and the two of them run simultaneously side by side. That's just who I am, and I've learned to grow out of the left brain more into the right brain. I started off with a construct. We're in a left brain society. It's a left brain world we're born into these days. It's all academic, it's all logical, it's all technical, it's all industry. That's the way it is, and we're taught not to believe in anything else. I never did, though. I never accepted the present paradigm or system. I seen it as it being imposed on me, and I followed my heart and my soul all the way, and I'm reaping the dividends of it now. I will also say, and I want to touch on this, I know some people don't enter astrology or whatever, but it doesn't even matter if you like astrology or not. I just think that when everybody is born or incarnated into this world, you're incarnated into Aries or a Cancer or a Capricorn or whatever, and you're giving a set of conditions, and it's like you've been handicapped with this vehicle, and you have to learn how to deal with it, and your set of parameters or your insight. It's like you're working backwards. You're trying to, get past all this stuff, and you need to get yourself to a balanced state. And I just think, whatever that vehicle that you're in, you call it Eastern astrology, Western astrology, whatever your set of conditions is. Maybe you don't want to put a label on it, but you need to get over that and get yourself to a balanced state. And humans, how they depends on your family, who you interact with, and your soul's journey. Are you going to get to that balanced state? And I don't think a lot of people do, Hilary. I think there's about 90% of the world, 80% of the world out there in an unbalanced state. They don't suppress their ego, they don't subjugate their ego anyway. You'll never fully beat your ego, but you will subjugate it to a point where it's trivial. And hopefully you do that earlier on, and then you rise above it. I mean, honestly, I have a brother. He's a degenerate. He's just an egomaniac, and I detest him at times, and I love him as well. I love him. He's my brother. I'm going to Mexico with him as well. It's like, but he's just like, I watch him do this, and I just watch him revert to this degenerative state of his ego sometimes, and it's a difficult thing, and people are difficult. But I just can only say to people, try and subjugate your ego. At whatever stage you are in your life, try and work with yourself and look for the energy in others. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Well, I know we're getting ready to close it down, but I want to also touch on a couple other things. It's also really important for people to remember that if you feel these twin flame emotions for another person, you should ask permission to explore them with that other person if that other person is not giving you the same clues that they're feeling that. It's really important, the reciprocal nature that takes place and needs to be respected, and boundaries need to be put into place to some degree. But if you're having feelings of familiarity with somebody, speaking your truth, coming out, not everybody wears their heart on a sleeve. So it's work to get that out, because people fear rejection, or people fear looking a certain way, or whatever it is. And forget it. Just do it. There's no reason to be afraid. I just did a teleconference with NASA physicist Tom Campbell that's going to be released soon, and we had an interesting conversation. He talked about the ability to clear your thoughts as probably one of the most important practices that we can do as human beings throughout our life. The better we are at clearing our thoughts and not being thinking species, but more feeling species, will help us engage these kind of energies in a more authentic way, so that we can be honest with ourselves and also the people that we're engaged with. I really like that. I also want to encourage people that, a good practice to practice this reciprocal communion is to go out into nature. I mean, literally sit down in a garden and meditate and feel the life around you. We have human beings and today have this thing that goes through the collective that has to do with nature not being alive. And we partner with nature. We partner with plants. We partner with animals. I mean, we're not just talking about human beings. We're talking about everything that's alive, and everything is alive. We're taught that inanimate objects don't have life, that they're not alive like we are, that they don't have consciousness. But every shaman that I have ever known or worked with has taught the exact opposite, that nature is alive, that we can have reciprocal relationships with it, that they understood and knew that the medicine plants that open up consciousness, when you ingest them, they knew the inside study, what the cells looked like. I mean, they were taught the uses from the plants themselves. So I believe that we, in some cases, we've moved forward in grand strides technologically as a species, but in other ways, we've lost a lot of ground with being able to facilitate these kinds of connections with all living things. So it's important to remember that if you want to practice what it's like to be with your twin flame or soulmate, go out and start falling in love with a plant. Sit next to a rose bush and meditate with the roses and see what they teach you. It's quite phenomenal, and it's hopeful. There's hope in that. This is not a hopeless situation. This is not, go hide your feelings because you're not used to expressing them, or you're afraid to share them because of whatever. Just lose your thoughts, lose your insecurities, work on yourself, bring it home, and realize that no matter what, you are already complete coming into any relationship, and anybody worthy of that reciprocal relationship will honor you, will respect you, it'll be mutual, and together you grow, and together your heart beats, and that's what creates that diffraction of energy that goes out to the surrounding worlds and inspires others to do the same.
Wow, Hilary, well, I'm going to leave it on that positive note. Hilary, we have a show later on in the week. Barbara Han-Clow. Looking forward to this book, The Ruby Crystal, I believe. I have a copy of it there. But we're going to talk later on in the week anyway for an interview with a super exciting guest. But Hilary, great to have you today. Looking forward to getting more of your shows on the network, and great to connect.
Thank you so much, James. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.